There are moments in life when everything feels suspended. You wake up, you live, you breathe, but it feels like you're inside something you can't quite explain. It's not exactly sadness, nor is it discouragement. It's as if you're being prepared for something that hasn't arrived yet, as if everything that once gave you direction is now covered in fog. And in the midst of that silence, God is working. Yes, it is precisely when everything seems chaotic that He is working the most. Not when doors are open, signs are clear, and results are visible. It's when you feel empty, when everything is dark, when no one understands you, and you begin to doubt what you carry inside. But even in that place, especially in that place, a divine process is unfolding. A process that cannot be seen, but is transforming you from within. Because God never starts from the outside. He begins at the roots. While you're asking for fruit, He's working the soil. While you ask to walk forward, He's teaching you how to remain still. And that's exactly why you often feel stuck, without direction, like everything is at a standstill. But it's not. You're being aligned, shaped, purified, and it hurts. Because we were not taught to value the seasons when nothing seems to happen. We were conditioned to only see value in motion, in achievements, in visible evidence. But God doesn't move by human logic. He works in silence. And His silence, far from being absence, is care. He's whispering, "You're not ready yet, but you're being prepared." During this phase, many things will seem to fall out of place. You'll lose people you thought would be by your side forever. You'll see doors close for no clear reason. You'll experience the breaking of cycles that once felt stable. But it's not chaos. It's transition. It's God repositioning you. He doesn't take anything away from you without purpose. He doesn't remove without intention. Everything that's leaving now no longer fits in what's coming next. But you must resist the urge to go back, to try to revive what has already passed, to force what God has already closed. Because when He begins preparing you for something new, the first thing He does is make space. And making space is not punishment. It's preparation. Room for the new. Room for maturity. Room for growth. This is where the true miracle begins. Not when things change on the outside, but when you begin to be remade on the inside. When your faith, once based on immediate answers, begins to stand on the character of God. When you stop asking, "When will it happen?" and start declaring, "I trust you," even without seeing. That's the turning point. It's when heaven realizes you no longer need proof, only His presence. You're not late. You're not being ignored. You're being trained. Like gold in the fire, like clay in the potter's hands. Everything in you is being transformed so that, when the time is right, you'll be ready to carry the weight of the promise. Have you ever wondered why God takes so long to act in certain areas of your life? Have you ever felt like you're waiting for something that never arrives, even after praying, fasting, believing, and staying firm? It's as if you're stuck in a narrow hallway between what has passed and what hasn't yet begun. A silent space where the only answer you receive is, wait. But wait for what? Until when? And why? The human heart hates the void. It longs for clarity. It wants to know. It wants to control. But God, He doesn't rush because of our anxiety. He works with precision, not with haste. Every second of the wait is an invisible movement that perfects your faith. Because before He gives you what you asked for, He needs to transform you into the person who will know how to handle it. The wait is not punishment. It's refinement. It's preparation. While you think you're standing still, heaven is working. God is adjusting situations, realigning people, repositioning destinies. But more than that, He's teaching you to trust even without control, to depend even without knowing the way, to believe even when the silence seems final. You may not realize it, but during this time, He is doing a deep work in your identity. He's freeing you from urgency, from ego, from the need for approval, from comparison. He's strengthening your mind, shaping your resilience, stripping away what is shallow so that you become deep. Because what He wants to do through you cannot be supported by a fragile emotional structure. You are being formed to carry a purpose greater than you imagine. And the greater the purpose, the greater the preparation. God doesn't waste pain. He doesn't ignore your cries. He doesn't walk away. He focuses. And when he goes silent, it's not because he's not listening. It's because he's working more intensely than ever. That silence is not rejection. It's concentration. Like a surgeon who, in the most critical moment of surgery, silences everything around. He cannot be distracted. What's being touched is vital. And so it is with God and you. And the question that echoes should not be, why is it taking so long? But rather, who am I becoming in this time? Because the waiting season is the season of inner construction. That's where you truly get to know yourself. That's where you understand how attached you were to control, how much you confused faith with results, how much you still needed to grow. And when that understanding begins to deepen, something changes. You no longer wait with impatience. You wait with trust. You no longer seek immediate answers. You seek intimacy. You no longer want everything to happen quickly. You want everything to happen at the right time, even if it costs your logic and your plans. Because you start to understand that the most important thing isn't what you're going to receive, it's who you're becoming while you wait. God is shaping you for something eternal, and his timing is never late. It only arrives when the vessel is ready, and you are being shaped, broken, remade. Not to be pretty, but to be useful. Not to impress, but to fulfill a purpose. You have not been forgotten. You are being prepared. Have you ever noticed how the greatest processes in life happen in silence? A seed grows beneath the earth, far from the eyes. True healing begins inside, long before the symptoms disappear. And it's the same with God. He shapes in stillness. He transforms without noise. He works in the invisible before revealing it in the visible. That's why, so often, you won't notice what's happening. And yet, you're being transformed. You won't hear anything. You won't see any movement. But you'll feel something different. A restlessness, a discomfort, a pain that's hard to name. It's not just sadness. It's not only exhaustion. It's your soul in process. The Spirit starts to stir your deepest layers. He begins to bring to light parts of you that had been asleep, hidden, repressed. He starts to shine light on old wounds, break down internal walls, dismantle lies you've carried as if they were absolute truths. And this process, as painful as it may be, is necessary. It's the price of true transformation. God doesn't take you to a new place without first confronting what's old inside of you. He doesn't build the new on top of broken foundations. He first tears down what's weak, then lays down what is firm. And as terrifying as that may seem, that's where freedom is born. You begin to realize that what you thought you needed wasn't truly essential, that people who once seemed indispensable were just temporary bridges, that paths that once looked promising were only distracting you from your real destiny. All of this surfaces when God starts molding you in the invisible. And it's in this terrain that many people give up, because they want the comfort of the old while asking for the new. They want revelation, but without reformation. They want the purpose, but without going through the process. But with God, it doesn't work that way. He loves you too much to let you stay stuck in something small. He sees you through eternal eyes, and he won't let you sabotage yourself through haste. That's why he will allow situations that squeeze you, conversations that unsettle you, silences that break you. All of it is a tool. All of it is an instrument, because he's building you from the inside before positioning you on the outside. And he is in no rush, because what is eternal cannot be rushed. God is removing the excess, clearing away the debris, cutting what's blocking your growth. And this might come in the form of losses, distance, abrupt endings. You may not understand it now. You might even think you're being punished. But later, when you look back, you'll understand. It was necessary to mature you, to free you, to make space, to teach you to trust in him, and no longer in what you could control. Because the control that makes you feel secure is the same control that's preventing your growth. And God is breaking that now. He's calling you to a place where faith isn't just a pretty theory, but a daily practice, a real surrender. And the more you trust, the more he reveals. Not all at once, but step by step. Because walking with God isn't about guarantees, it's about dependence. And the more you depend, the more He strengthens you. The more He aligns your steps. The more He shows you that it's not you who sustains the journey, it's Him. It always has been. The invisible is where true transformation takes place. And if that's where you are right now, if everything seems dark, confusing, formless, know this: that's exactly where the Spirit is working the hardest. Because it's in the darkness that God plants the deepest roots. And those are the roots that will sustain you when the winds of blessing begin to blow. Don't run from the invisible. Don't underestimate the silence. That's where God is making you bloom. There are seasons when everything seems to fall apart all at once. Doors close, ties break, plans fail, and even your faith feels shaken. It's as if life suddenly decides to push you down to the ground. And deep inside, you start to ask yourself, where is God in all of this? The mind searches for answers. The heart cries out for relief. But the soul, it just feels. It feels that something is breaking, both inside and out. And the hardest part to accept is that, yes, sometimes it's God Himself who allows the breaking, but not to destroy you, to set you free, to tear down the fragile foundations on which you were building your life. Foundations made of control, dependence on people, vanity disguised as purpose. God doesn't build a solid future on unstable ground. He breaks to rebuild. He allows loss to reveal what's real. He allows pain to purify your intentions. Because there are things you can only learn in the wilderness, only recognize in mourning, only discover in scarcity. It's when you lose your footing that you discover God is the only one who can truly hold you up. And at that point, you no longer depend on what you have. You learn to depend solely on who He is. That's a place of deep surrender. A place where you stop trying to control the uncontrollable. Where you stop fighting to keep standing the structures that God has already decided to tear down. Where you begin to understand that breaking is also care. That taking away is also provision. That allowing something to end is also grace. You'll miss things that once deceived you. You'll feel pain over goodbyes that seemed unfair. You'll live days when your only prayer is the silence of a weary heart. But even in that state, God is present. He never leaves while He is molding. The difference is that He silences the outside so that you learn to hear Him within. So you come back to trust. Not because everything is fine, but because He is still God. And little by little, what once looked like chaos begins to reveal itself as divine reorganization. What once seemed unfair reveals its divine logic. What once looked like loss turns into liberation. You don't see it on the first day, or the second, but there comes a moment when the light begins to shine again, and you feel that something has changed. Not around you, but within you. Now you're lighter, more sensitive, more aware. Now you walk without carrying so much emotional weight, without clinging to everything, without trying to save what God has already ended. Because you've learned, often the hard way, that God's will is good, pleasing, and perfect, even when it feels painful. And then you begin to open yourself again, not out of impulse, but out of maturity. You begin to accept that there are things that only make sense afterward. That purpose sometimes comes disguised as problems, and that peace isn't the absence of struggle. It's knowing who is with you in the midst of it. Yes, you were broken, but you were not destroyed. You were pruned, but to bear fruit. You were silenced, but to hear more clearly. And now, you are closer to God than ever before. Not because everything worked out, but because you stopped resisting and started trusting. And this is where the new begins. There are doors you really wanted to see open, paths you believed were the right ones, people who seemed essential to your destiny. And suddenly, everything shuts down. Everything leaves. Everything collapses. And you're left there, not understanding, asking God, why? The feeling of rejection, abandonment, and injustice invades your soul like a cold wind. But it's precisely in that moment that you need to remember. When God closes a door, He's protecting you. What feels like denial today might be deliverance tomorrow. What seems like a delay might actually be alignment. God doesn't see as we see. He knows the backstage you can't see. He knows the hidden intentions, the disguised dangers, the consequences you wouldn't be able to bear. And because He loves you, He acts. He closes. He blocks. He prevents. And yes, it hurts. Because you had plans. You prayed. You believed. And still, that door didn't open. But what if God isn't saying no to frustrate you? What if He's saying no because His yes is elsewhere? What if what you thought was the best was actually just the most convenient? God doesn't work to comfort you. He works to complete you. And sometimes that means leading you down roads you never would have chosen on your own. He closes doors because He sees beyond. He cuts ties because He knows where each one would lead you. He ends cycles because He understands the kind of weight you can't carry anymore. And when you begin to see that, your heart changes. You stop resisting and start resting. You stop complaining and start thanking. Because you realize that everything that left your life was actually holding you back more than helping you. Yes, it may have hurt. It may have made you feel rejected, forgotten, left behind. But God never abandons you. He protects you. And part of that protection includes removing what you weren't brave enough to let go of. He sees your attachments. He sees your hopes placed in things that won't sustain you. He sees your eyes fixed on paths that would have led you astray. And with firmness, but also with love, He steps in. The truth is, if it were up to us, we'd often take dangerous shortcuts. We'd accept relationships that drain us. We'd walk through doors that look like opportunities, but are actually traps. And God, like a father who sees the future, says, no, not now, not with that person, not like this. And even without understanding, your soul must learn to trust. Because real faith isn't just believing when everything goes right. It's believing when the doors close too. It's believing when God says not yet, or not this way. It's looking up to heaven and saying, I don't understand, but I trust you. It's resting in the fact that even when everything seems against you, God is for you. And when you take that stance, something shifts. You no longer force open doors that God has shut. You no longer beg to stay where God has already left. You begin to walk with lightness, with eyes wide open and a heart that listens. Because now you understand, what's meant for you cannot be taken. But what isn't, God will remove. And He removes with purpose, to open new doors, to lead you to places where your presence is the answer, to align your destiny with what He's dreamed for you from the beginning. So, if something has left your life, don't run after it. If a door has closed, don't knock in desperation. God has something greater, better, and in the right time, He will show you the reason for it all. The door that closes today is the path to something that will make you say one day, thank you, God, for not letting me walk through it. Have you ever felt that strange sensation of no longer belonging where you are? That restlessness that has no logical explanation, but keeps showing up in your thoughts, in your prayers, in your silences? Nothing external has changed, but inside you, everything feels different. And no matter how much you try to fit into the old, something screams in your spirit. You don't belong here anymore. That feeling is not anxiety. It's not whim. It's God awakening something inside you. It's heaven breathing a silent call. Get up. I have more for you. And often, that awakening comes without warning. It shows up in the middle of routine, of exhaustion, of apparent stability. But when it comes, you feel it. And you can't pretend you don't hear it anymore. That kind of restlessness is sacred. It's the exact point where the Spirit begins to move you before moving your circumstances. God always changes the inside before changing the outside. And when He starts doing that, it's because something new is about to begin. But for the new to come, you need to recognize that the old no longer serves. And that requires courage. Courage to leave the comfort. Courage to step out of what's familiar. Courage to break away from what is stable, but no longer fertile. Because God's calling never leaves us where we are. It pushes us forward. It challenges us to grow. It forces us to mature. He doesn't make us comfortable. He moves us. That's why, when you try to ignore this inner stirring, everything starts to lock up. You lose your excitement. The things that once made sense now feel empty. The environments around you exhaust you. The conversations that once sparked you now leave you feeling dry. It's like your soul is saying goodbye, even though your body is still present. And the more you resist that calling, the heavier everything becomes. Because God never awakens a heart without purpose. He doesn't create hunger without preparing the meal. If you feel it's time to leave a place, to end a cycle, to walk toward the unknown, it's because something greater has already been released over your life. But to live that new season, you need to respond. You need to say yes with your feet, not just with your lips. You need to accept that there is a time for everything, and that the time to stay has passed. Now is the time to move forward, time to obey, time to trust. Restlessness is God's voice calling you to the next level. Don't ignore it. Don't dismiss it. Don't try to numb it with distractions, because that voice will not go silent. It will grow louder. It will confront you. It will pull you until you surrender. And when you do, heaven moves. Doors begin to open. Favor starts to show up. Blocked connections begin to unfold. Everything around you starts confirming what you already knew deep inside. The time has come. And you realize that restlessness wasn't discomfort. It was direction. Not every emptiness hurts. Sometimes emptiness is space. A space that God creates so you can live something new. And that new won't be found where you are now. It will be found when you obey, when you move, when you have enough faith to leave what is good in search of what is eternal. You are not restless by accident. You are being called. Heaven is knocking on the door of your soul. And it's up to you to decide, will you keep fighting for what's already over? Or will you trust that God has more? Before God pours a new portion into your life, He always checks to see if there's enough space to receive it. And the biggest obstacle isn't always the outside world, it's what you haven't surrendered inside. Old expectations, unyielded desires, unresolved emotions, pride disguised as conviction. All of that takes up space. And God won't pour the new where the old still reigns. That's why, so often, you feel like something is about to happen, but it doesn't. You pray, you seek, you feel His presence, but the answer feels blocked. And the reason isn't out there, it's in here. There's something that needs to be removed, something that needs to break, something that needs to be cleansed. Because God doesn't pour into disorder, He pours into surrender. The blessing of God carries a weight of glory, and it cannot be sustained by fragile structures. That's why before the blessing comes the breaking, before the promotion, the test, before the answer, the silence. And it's not punishment, it's adjustment, it's purification. It's heaven saying, if I give it to you now, it will destroy you. But if you allow me to prepare the ground, what I give you will be eternal. That's why you feel so much pressure. That's why it seems like everything is closing in at once. It's not the end, it's the beginning. But every true beginning starts with emptying. You need to let go of what became a silent idol. You need to release control. Stop negotiating with God as if you knew the better way. You need to make space. And making space hurts. Because it means accepting that some things will leave without coming back. That some cycles will end without explanation. That some people will walk away. Not because you failed, but because the new phase demands a different frequency. And when that happens, your soul must be ready not to cling to what was, but to trust in what's to come. God doesn't take away to punish. He removes to align. He clears out the unnecessary to highlight the essential. And what is essential never comes without cleansing. So stop complaining about what's leaving. Start giving thanks. Start declaring, Lord, take whatever you want. Just don't let me lose what comes from you. That's the most dangerous and most powerful prayer you can make, because it invites God to move without resistance. And when He finds a heart completely available, He holds nothing back. He pours, He releases, He breathes, and everything changes. Not because the world has changed, but because you made space for heaven to be revealed. Maybe that's exactly where you are right now. You feel like something big is near, but you're being confronted by internal pain you'd rather ignore. Pride, self-sufficiency, old fears. But that's exactly what God is revealing. Not to expose you, but to heal you, so that when the blessing comes, it finds fertile ground, free, surrendered. The new season you've been waiting for requires a version of you that's still being formed. And that version is not born in comfort. It's born in surrender, in secret tears, in obedient silence, in daily letting go, in space created by faith. So if everything is falling out of place, know this: it's not ruin, it's preparation. God is doing a sacred cleanup inside of you. And when everything is clean, free, surrendered, He will come. He will come with everything He promised. And you won't just receive, you'll carry it. You'll multiply it. You'll live it with maturity, depth, and purpose. But first, make space. There comes a moment when your strength runs out. You prayed, persisted, tried to fix things. You did everything you knew how, and still, nothing moved. And it's in that moment, when you finally let go of control, that something powerful happens. You surrender, but not a surrender of defeat, a surrender of trust. You stop fighting alone, and finally begin to rest in God. This moment is sacred, because that's when faith stops being a theory and becomes a living experience. You leave behind human effort and enter divine rest. And you rest not because everything is resolved, but because you recognize that you no longer have to carry it all on your back, that there is a Father who has already written the end of your story, and He doesn't make mistakes. As long as you keep trying to manipulate results, control the timing, anticipate what only God can do, you will live exhausted. Your soul will wear out trying to keep standing structures that no longer have a foundation. But when you let go, when you truly let go, peace enters, and heaven takes over. And that's exactly what God wants. For you to stop trying to be your own savior. For you to recognize that you have limits. For you to learn how to live surrendered. Because faith isn't just believing God can. It's stopping your own rhythm, your own way, and saying, Lord, I have no more strength, but I trust that your arm is enough. Most miracles happen when the human being reaches the end of themselves, when there are no more alternatives, no plan B, when all that's left is trust, because that's when God reveals Himself as the only one. When He becomes everything you have, that's when you discover He's always been everything you needed. That kind of faith doesn't grow on easy days. It grows in silence. It matures in weariness. It strengthens in the nights when you cry silently and say, even so I trust. And God, who sees the heart before the words, comes near. He moves where there is true surrender. He acts when He sees that you're no longer trying to take His place. And when faith is built that way, without bargaining, without control, without anxiety, peace comes. A peace that doesn't depend on answers. A peace that doesn't need guarantees. It simply exists. Because you know, deep down, that the God who promised you something doesn't lie. And even if time seems long, He is preparing everything with perfection. Mature faith is quiet. It doesn't scream. It doesn't panic. It simply walks, one step at a time, even without seeing, even without feeling, because it knows who's guiding. And that certainty is enough. Maybe you are at that exact point right now. Maybe you're tired of fighting. Maybe you've been trying to fix things with the strength of your own arms. But today, God is inviting you to stop, to breathe, to release, to let Him be God. Letting go is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's the decision to rest, even without answers, to trust even without visible paths, to believe that if He brought you this far, He won't abandon you now. The God who began the good work in you is faithful to complete it, and He will, at the right time, in the right way, with details you never imagined. But first, trust. Stop fighting alone, and see what happens when you let God be everything. You may have heard this before, but now it's time to truly understand it with your heart. God is never late. It may seem like everything is taking too long. It may seem like the promises have been forgotten somewhere in time. But the truth is, heaven doesn't work according to your clock. God's timing isn't chronological. It's intentional. He doesn't act when you want. He acts when you're ready. And being ready has nothing to do with competence, status, or performance. It has to do with spiritual maturity, with what you've learned in silence, with how much you've grown while you waited. Because a promise, when it comes before its time, becomes a burden. But when it comes at the right moment, it becomes momentum, direction, expansion. That's why, many times, God holds back something you've been praying for over the years. Not because He wants to punish or delay your life, but because He knows the impact that blessing will bring. He understands that before giving you something great, He needs to make sure you have the structure to carry what comes with it. Responsibility, influence, challenges. And this preparation time is subtle. Sometimes you don't even realize you're being worked on, but you are. Every difficult situation is refining your patience. Every loss is teaching you resilience. Every silence is deepening your intimacy with God. And all of this, though it may seem disconnected now, is setting the perfect stage so that when the promise arrives, you'll be whole, aware, and strengthened. Haste wants to make you believe you're falling behind. Comparing your life to others plants a feeling of failure inside you, but God doesn't compare you to anyone. Your path is unique. Your process is exclusive. Your journey is personalized. And what He has prepared for you will come at the exact moment you're ready. Not before, not after. In the meantime, trust. Keep your heart aligned. Continue sowing with faith, even if you haven't seen the fruit yet. Continue praying with sincerity, even if you haven't heard an answer. Keep walking, even if the ground seems invisible. Because without realizing it, you're getting closer. Heaven is already in motion. And when the moment arrives, and it will, everything will fall into place in a way that only God could orchestrate. The right connections, the right doors, the right answers, the relief that only His timing can provide. And then you'll understand why so many no's came first. You'll be thankful for the closed doors, for the delays, for the unexpected turns. You'll realize that if you had received it earlier, you would have wasted it. That if you had forced it, you would have been disappointed. God loves you too much to give you something prematurely that would still harm you. He would rather see you grow today so that you can live in fullness tomorrow. And believe this, when the right time comes, neither you, nor the world, nor the enemy will be able to stop it. Because what God has determined will come to pass, and it will come with glory. Your part is to remain faithful. His part is to fulfill it at the perfect time. You've been through so much already. You've endured silences that felt eternal, waiting that hurt, losses that emptied your soul. You've prayed exhausted. You've cried in silence. You've longed for understanding and didn't find it. And still, you remained. And that holds eternal weight. Because those who remain, even without seeing, are the ones closest to living what they once asked for. And now, a new season begins to take shape. You can't quite see it yet, but you feel it. You feel that something has changed. You feel lighter, more aware. You no longer need certainties in order to trust. You feel that even without having it all in your hands yet, something inside you has already opened, has already aligned, has already been prepared. That's when heaven begins to move swiftly, because God has been waiting for this moment. The moment you stop fighting the process and begin to walk with Him in peace. The moment your silent obedience speaks louder than any frustrated plan. The moment your spirit becomes receptive, unarmed, pure, ready. And when that point comes, nothing can stop what's coming. No human delay, no past mistake, no injustice you've suffered has the power to prevent what God has decided to release over your life. When He says now, even what seemed lost is rebuilt. What was far comes near. What seemed impossible happens. What was dead comes back to life. And you realize that you didn't have to force anything. That it wasn't your strength that made things happen, but your faith. That it wasn't your anxiety that sped up the process, but your consistency that prepared the way. Because in the kingdom of God, The one who runs doesn't always get there first, but the one who remains is always reached. God will honor every tear you shed in silence, every sacrifice no one saw, every hard decision you made out of love for Him. None of it went unnoticed. It was all recorded, all counted. And now, He is about to turn your pain into testimony, your waiting into fulfillment, your battle into breakthrough. You will no longer be recognized for what you lost, but for what you endured. You won't be marked by what wounded you, but by what was built within you. And those looking from the outside won't understand what's happening. But you will know. It was God. It could only have been Him. Because no one else could have turned this path into a blessing, this pain into strength, this silence into fullness. And in this new time, you won't just receive. You will impact. You will heal. You will teach. You will shine. Because now you carry something that can't be bought, imitated, or faked. Spiritual maturity. Now you know the true path of faith. Now you understand that even when everything seems against you, God is for you. You've made it here not by luck, but by grace. And the same grace that sustained you through the process will now be the fuel to live the promise. The time has come. The time of harvest, the time of restoration, the time for the manifestation of what God has been preparing far longer than you imagined. And when it all comes to pass, don't forget, it all began in the silence.